Today I continue with part 2 of my interview with seasoned homeschool reviewers Michele Schweitzer and Lori Horner. Not only do they share incredible information for junior high and high school reviews, they also share their top 5 homeschool review tips.
I was all alone, but then you came along.
Well, we are having a conversation with our 2 reviewers. I have Michele Schweitzer, who is a homeschool reviewer from Maryland, and we have Lori Horner, who is a homeschool reviewer for West Virginia and Virginia. And we have been discussing what is necessary for portfolio and a review and all that kind of stuff. You can watch our first episode to hear about that. But now we're going to turn our conversation a little bit and talk about junior high and high school. Just to recap, we said in elementary, it's pretty much just encouraging the families to go along. Would that be correct to say? And accountability and I think you mentioned really working with reading and math, which I guess I'm skipping back just a bit here for a second, but that they really want to really work in elementary on having your reading skills and your math skills strong. Would that be correct? Along with other expectations, but would that be correct?
Foundational.
Yeah, foundational. Would that be correct? Yeah. Okay, so supposing you've gotten your student through, now they're entering junior high and high school. Is there a difference with junior high? Would you say, Lori?
I think so. They're bumping up a little bit. So the requirements a little bit more. You're wanting to see a little bit more output from your students, working on those writing skills, helping them to identify what their goals are. Mm-hmm. Even, they're young, they may not have specifics, but where are their talents? Where are their gifts? What kind of things are kind of, bubbling to the surface as you see them, and where might they want to go? So that's kind of the things that we start talking about in that junior high.
Wonderful.
Time where a lot of extracurriculars start kicking in, athletics, maybe speech clubs, all kinds of things. Really that they are learning how to manage their time more than they ever have and start to own some of their studies more than they have. And really position themselves, at least with our organization, in 8th grade, they can start earning early credits for high school. So 6th and 7th, they're kind of laying out the foundation to start those early credits if that's something they want to do.
Yeah, that's nice. So this is kind of a transition time when they're beginning to look at all of these, strengthening their skills and kind of towards high school and their future. That's kind of a nice way to think about it, because I think it can be very unusual, or not unusual, but difficult for the mom. Right? Don't you think all of a sudden, like, your child is just more independent and there can be a transition in their relationship? And so it's kind of nice the way you guys put that during those junior high years, you're just taking it up a notch and turning the direction of your focus, getting some skills, the other study skills. And then you also mentioned that extracurricular activities sort of come in here more. Do you see this interrupting with the school, or no? It's just a part of the age. Do you see it? Go ahead, Michele.
I personally think it's great when they, every school schedule looks different. But with my kids, there's always been that thing that they're finishing for, and it's a good an ending cap, a motivation to let's get this school finished, and then we often move on to whether it's ballet for one, or choir, or sports, or whatever it is. It's a nice addition for us to the school day, and it kind of rounds out our subjects.
Good. Yeah. And then, so now let's talk about high school. In our first episode, we just mentioned briefly, you talked about credits. So with a reviewer, and again, it might be different, just again, the expectations between the different states. And again, we are talking about Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia, and every state has their own requirements. So whatever state you're in, you want to check your state homeschool website as well as HSLDA. Those are great resources. But let's talk about what is required in homeschool, in high school, and with the reviews. So, Michele, do you want to start?
Sure. In Maryland, at least for the organization that we're with, we offer the students 2 tracks. They can do an academic track in high school, or they can do a general diploma. And just like it sounds, the academic track has more credits. And we do spell out for them, for instance, you need to have 4 English credits in high school, and 3 math credits and 3 science credits, etc. So they have a plan that it's very helpful to start maybe in even the summer of 8th grade, is just cut a rising 9th grader to lay out, and this is something I like to help the families do, is where do you see your student? What's their interest? Do you want to work in marine biology? Do you want to kind of do the standard science track? And just sort of have a roadmap that they could change at any time, but just so they're not surprised or from year to year floundering picking subjects, it's helpful to have a roadmap, and then they can accomplish those credits by the time they need to be done by, which usually for homeschoolers, they're done in 11th grade. Yeah. Usually if they're sort of a more academic bent, they're done and they're just satisfying in 12th grade. My daughter did her 12th grade in college, community college, and I know a lot of homeschoolers do that.
Right. So there's sort of a path that they have to do. Now you have to, at least when I did it under the umbrella that we were a part of, we had to, what would you say, qualify a credit, so to speak. Like I couldn't say, well, she's getting a credit in this class and what had she done? Watched one movie and
Right. For us, we do ask them to submit a course description.
Okay.
They don't need one if it's a standard high school textbook, a standard 11th grade math book. They don't have to define that course other than saying they're going to complete 75% of that textbook. But if they create their own course, like verbal communication, and they're putting together a couple different clubs with a couple different speeches that are assessed, then yes, they would have to describe what that course was going to look like and just turn it in and say, is this okay for this credit? And then we would say yes.
Is it true? I always heard 120 hours kind of, for a
academic 1 credit.
Yeah. And we used to do that for, even ballet. If we took that as a PE credit, then we would mark that, all the times and adding up to 120 hours. Yeah. What about you, Lori? Is that similar to how a person would approach high school in West Virginia or Virginia?
So West Virginia and Virginia allow you to create your own transcript. Now, what I recommend my families to do is go to the state standards and say, what are the state standards for graduation from Virginia or from West Virginia? And they are 4 years of math, 4 years of English, 2 foreign languages, 3 years of lab science, those kind of things. And same thing as Michele, you get up there in junior high, what is your plan? What are you looking at doing? And we, talk with the student at that point and say, look, these are your options. What do you think you're going to be looking at? What kind of after school or your extracurricular things are you looking at? Can we mesh them a little bit? What are your interests? And talking to parents about what a credit hour is, because we don't have umbrella schools, so there isn't that option to have those 2 credits or those 2 tracks. West Virginia and Virginia, you certify your own child's transcripts and you certify your own diploma. And so you don't have that kind of necessarily. But there are...
Maryland probably is the same. If you go directly through the state for your county review, then I think it's probably the same. Then if you choose to join a private umbrella, then you have to adhere to those.
Right. And I know that is correct. I do know that, because that was one of the advantages personally of an umbrella school, was that we had to meet their standard of a credit. Like they said, yes, that counts as a credit, but then they issued the transcript and diploma. But I do know that in Maryland, you can also go under the public school system and be accountable to them, but you do what you're saying, Lori. You issue the transcript and you issue the diploma.
Right.
But now, and I think you said this, but just to make sure I understood, you said there was a state list? Because you mentioned the 4 and
Right. So there are state standards for graduation that they do for their public school.
Okay.
And if there are students who are wanting to go to a state school, they're going to need to make those benchmarks and those transcripts. If they want to apply for the Promise Scholarship here in West Virginia, you have to meet the state standards for graduation. And so what does that look like? And so those are the requirements. Now, if they're thinking about going to a private school, what I say is go to that admissions counselor, ask what they're going to want to see on their transcript, because they may not have quite the same regulations or expectations of a student coming in.
right.
The same for us, if we meet with a family who, like, they know, for instance, their son wants to be in the local public school for sports in their last couple years of high school so that they can get recognized for scouting or whatever, it is a good thing to say to the parents, you know, you need to find out what that school requires so that your child isn't left short. Sometimes it's something as specific as American history has to come in a certain year versus European history, and then they're stuck. So, you know, it is the onus is on the parents, but as their helpers, we can come alongside them and remind them of these things. Same if their child wants to be in the military academies have different standards. And so we just don't want them to be blindsided.
Right. So that's where a relationship with a reviewer is wonderful, because you have this broad experience. You've probably worked with families who want to go in the military, and families who want to go to a private school, and families whose students want different things. So you probably have a broad experience that a family might not be aware of.
Probably through working through problems, not because you have any great wealth of knowledge, but just through, wow, this student actually wants to be an Olympic swimmer. Ooh, she needs very specific you know, a set of guidelines in order to apply for NCAA colleges. And so we learn through mistakes, lots of exposing to tricky areas.
Yes, but you've learned. And so we come and say, you already know this. No. But that is another thing, because I do hear about that. I do hear about it's NCCA, is that correct? What is it?
NCAA.
NCAA, there it is. Like, I've worked with students on that as well, and that is something that matters to be able to do the sports at the school at the division levels, whatever. So I think what I'm hearing too is begin thinking about these things in the beginning of your high school. Right. So
and no one has a crystal ball, and a lot of kids don't have any idea what they want to do, and that's totally normal and fine. So you can't cover all your bases. My son-in-law was actually applying for golf scholarships and to get into some NCAA schools, and his mom was caught needing a bio for every single teacher for his entire 9th through 12th grade experience, even the co-op, you know, veteran that taught history that we lined up. So they had to really scramble, and no one can be prepared for everything, that's for sure. But there are, you know, just by asking, talking to friends, talking to a reviewer. I love being a reviewer because I get to hear so many situations, and it makes me a better homeschool mom because I get exposed to so many different resources that I can share with other people too.
Right. And I think, like you said, though, there's so many individual journeys that you have been a part of. I didn't know if there was anything, I don't know, an experience that you had as a reviewer that you wanted to share that was close to your heart, that might be encouraging. I don't know, a student that struggled and then made it, or I don't know. That's kind of putting you on the spot there. If you can remember. Can you remember one?
I just love having the students who come back, you know, after they come back with younger siblings, or you have, you know, the ones who see you someplace and they're very excited that, you know, oh, it's Mrs. Warner. And, you know, it's just so neat to see them and to be kind of working alongside their family. I don't know if I have a specific story. How about you, Michelle?
I'm trying to think. I could just pull out for you because there have been a lot of great moments with these families. But no, I can't think of one specifically. But we've had a lot of special times together. Some having a relationship with a family over the years I remember one event where I got a call while I was with the family about a scholarship that one of my kids had received, but then the funding fell through. And I remember we stopped, and I was kind of emotional, and she prayed for me. And it was such a blessing to have someone. I was supposed to be there helping her, but then she turned around, and she was such an encouragement to me, and she was faithful to check on how the students' funding was coming, and a lot of special times.
Just the relationships. Well, yeah. I have a question. Did that student get in with the swimming?
She did.
She did. Okay, she did. There's our story. Yay! No. Yeah. So you struggled through that, and she was able to meet the requirements and get into the swimming.
The mom did a lot of work, a lot of credit counting, a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think some of my favorite stories have been families who adopted children, and to see how quickly they, come into their family and they just are able to meet the requirements, but also just to see how they change over time and how they come in and they're shy and in a new situation, new experiences, and they blossom, as you see them year to year. I think those have been some of my favorite stories.
Wow, that is beautiful. And I guess just the journey of walking alongside families and the journey of seeing people grow, and even just life circumstances, being able to walk alongside with them. And then to see them, the kids that you have worked with, to see them grow up to be successful young adults is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm sorry that our time is almost over, but let's end. Could you tell me your top 5 tips that you would give parents for their reviews? So, Michele, do you want to go first and just
limit to a minute or two? How brief do I have to be?
No. As much as you want. You get to take your time.
I would just say that remember that your homeschool review really should not be an exam that you cram for, but just a reflection of the experience that you've been having all year long with your family, and a chance for you to get together with someone who is willing to come alongside you and celebrate everything that you've accomplished. But if we're going to be really practical, I would say get out your work samples ahead of time. Don't make your reviewer sit there while you run around the house looking for that crumpled test or looking for a login for the online course so that you can find their grades, but just have it all out and ready. No fancy binder is needed, although I have seen some amazing portfolios. You can simply have a spot where you've collected throughout the year the math tests and the writing assignments, or a copy of them, so that you are ready to just share with your reviewer an overview of what your children have accomplished. Not every single math lesson, but a summary. I would also just say, figure out a way before your school year starts to grade and assess your child's work somehow. Doesn't have to be a fancy rubric, although it could be. It could just be a verbal evaluation written down in paragraph form, or it could be a 90, 80, 70% type of rubric, but keep it in such a way that you can be consistent with it. Don't be so overcomplicated that you're going to go through to October and then just quit because you're so overwhelmed. But make it manageable and just make it consistent, and try to grade what you're going to grade on a timely basis so that you don't have a mountain piling up for you in preparation for your review. And I would also say, pick a curriculum and try not to switch around too much in the middle of a school year. It's fine to course correct, but if you're going to do it 6 times, it's probably in the middle of a school year, it's probably not going to serve your child with getting some consistent knowledge base. So just try to pick your curriculum and stick with it. And think about some questions that you could ask your reviewer, because they're going to have a lot of good ideas for you. They know your family, and they may be able to fill in some gaps for you and share some information that may help you tweak what you're doing. And just remember that the days can be really long, but the years fly by. I've got 3 now graduated and married and off in their careers, and 1 left, and it's shocking how fast they're gone. So just work hard to find that balance, to push yourself hard, but don't beat yourself up. And I really like Sarah Mackenzie's book, Teaching from Rest. She says to find a balance between it shouldn't be a test, but just a chance to celebrate what you've accomplished with your children.
Yeah, wonderful. And Lori, do you have anything to add?
I do.
Yay.
So I would say, first of all, make it personal. Make your portfolio, make your review personal to your child. Involve them in the process. What do they think made progress over the year so that they're able to do that? And that starts with having goals. So make sure that you have your goals set for your year, and they don't have to be, specific, but an overall goal that you're going to be working towards. Keep it simple, but be selective. So don't bring me, 7 boxes of things at the end of the year. Try to pare it down and be selective about what showed your child's progress. And I would say use it as an assessment I used it as an assessment for myself as an instructor for my children, but also for their assessment. So what do I need to improve on for next year? What did we do well? And go from there so that you have some benchmarks that you want to meet. Is that along that lines of assessment of how am I grading? What does it look like? And have that be consistent. Document as you go. Make sure you're dating your work. So our homeschoolers sometimes don't know to put their name and their date on their work, right? That's not something we do.
Neither do the parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So date your work, make sure that it's on there. And again, make it a celebration. It is a celebration of a year. And I think when you get to the end of your year and you accumulate that amount of work, you see how much work you've done. And I think it's a really neat way for our students and parents to see that, yes, we have accomplished more than we thought we did.
Wonderful.
So.
Yeah, I think that is wonderful. I love the practical and the vision that you have shared. And I think about that, just the idea at the beginning of the year, you've got all these things you want to do, and you do get to the end and you have done so much. And sometimes it's surprising. Things you're surprised with, or we did better than we thought, or we enjoyed this subject more. And so I think it is wonderful, like you say, to reflect and to celebrate. Well, you guys, I have really appreciated you taking the time to have this discussion with us. I didn't know if you have any final words you want to say, or even contact information that we could even add that in, below if you are in Maryland and want to see Michele, or if you're in Virginia or West Virginia and want to see Lori. I'd love to make that available. But any last things you want to say?
I was looking for a quote from that book that I referenced, and I found it while Lori was talking. And she says, Sarah Mackenzie says, find that balance of rest in your teaching, which is the virtue between negligence and anxiety. And I just love that, because we can bounce back and forth, too little, too much. And I love that encouragement.
And those are awesome words.
Yeah.
Anxiety. Did you say anxiety and negligence? Wow. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, Lori?
No, I don't know if I can say it better than that. That's a really great way of ending. And I just really think, to just know that your children are with you for a certain time. And so sometimes there are days, not every day and not every week, right? But sometimes we need to drop the curriculum and build relationship with our kids.
Yes.
And because if you don't have relationship with someone, you can't teach them. So, just keep that relationship first and foremost. Again, not every day,
right?
We still have to be the parent, but to maintain that relationship and not to be a slave to your curriculum. Have fun with your kiddos.
Right.
Yes.
The days are long, but the years are short.
I so agree that it's such a privilege, and we can have this. It's almost like this legalism of thinking we've got to check off this box, we've got to get here, we've got to do this, and we miss the beauty of the moments that we're in. So I so agree. And all of us know, because our kids are older. But I will say, that is what you still have, is the relationship. And I'm just so grateful that we took the time to build that while we were homeschooling. Yeah. Well, did we pass today? That's the question. I think we did.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes.
Thank you both. This is really wonderful. We appreciate you both so much. All right. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye. I hope this interview has helped you to feel more confident and better equipped for your homeschool review. I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to get notified when we release new content. Until then, check us out at thehomeeducatedmind.com, and remember, yes, you can homeschool.